Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 350 of the Stacey West podcast. It's a big number, Chris, isn't it? I'm with Chris this week. How you doing?
Big old number. I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Busy bee.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and bring some much-needed cheerfulness and positivity to the podcast. Not necessarily about the football, but about everything else. But no, in all honesty, we're going to dive quite deeply into some of the football stuff. Of course, we are a football podcast, but I do think it's nice sometimes just to have a little bit of a bounce in your step and just to try and look at things from all angles, really. So before we start talking about the football, I'm going to be chipper before it grinds me down. How are you, Ben?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I've been a bit bunged up since Christmas. Yeah, but I'm slowly getting over that. And I had one of those moments earlier on today where, you know, if you feel like you're a bit bunged up and you blow your nose and sometimes something comes out of it like a shotgun blast. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can breathe in 4K. What is this? I can smell things again. It was, that was a brief moment of bliss in what has been a bunged up fortnight. But
bless you. Well, I do envy that because a personal medical challenge I have is some sinusy issues. So my sense of smell is quite poor. Always have a bunged up nose to an extent. So I'm a bit jealous that you blew your nose and something came out. To be honest, that isn't something that happens very often my end. But I suppose we probably don't want to be spending too long talking about our noses and our
nasal excrement. No.
No. We've got quite a lot to squeeze into today. So for the purposes of Stu, because we always forget to do this, yes. We're going to, of course, discuss the Bolton match from last night in the, whatever it's called now, trophy. Going to revisit the potential of Sam Clucas signing for the football club. He was, I would like to say, rumoured to be seen at Sincil Bank last night. I saw him. He was definitely there. Not wanted to start rumours, but it's not a rumour if it's true, is it? He was definitely there. So what does that mean? We'll have a chat about that. We're going to talk about a report from only one source, in fairness, so it might be rubbish, but that Freddie Draper might potentially be heading out on loan to Notts County, which, of course, widens our discussion around the whole striker situation at the football club. Saxon Early has left, apparently. I didn't realise he hadn't already gone, but he's officially gone now. And, of course, we've got a really big game against Northampton coming up on Saturday. So, Ben, Absolutely. Where are we going to start, my friend?
Well, we may as well start with Bolton, the Virtue Trophy, as it's now called, or as some hilarious folks on the socials have been calling it, the Virtue Signalling Trophy, the Virtually Nobody Watching It Trophy, whatever you want to call it. The Virtue Trophy, essentially going out of two competitions in the space of 4 days last night. So. Coming away from the game, it felt like, and this was just sort of the gut reaction, it was another one of those where you look at it, you go, that wasn't too bad, but we lost. And I've got to be honest, I'm getting a little bit bored of that now.
Yeah, I think you can only go so long being optimistic and look at the bigger picture. And I like to think we're fortunate here that we maybe we have the ability and the time through Y Scout and our experiences now and then speaking to people at the club that we've got a really good idea of what happens behind the scenes, or maybe more so than a lot of people have the privilege of knowing. So we're able to look at that context a bit. And I have 100, genuinely, nothing in terms of the long term has changed in my mind. I still feel really comfortable about the long-term direction this football club is going in. I think we're fine. And it's a really exciting club to be to be part of. And sometimes that clouds the view. And I think in an individual match, you can feel hard done by at times. You can think, okay, we're creating chances. Sometimes we're not, but we're creating chances. Sometimes we're not taking them. Maybe it's a bit unfair in the results. So I suppose you can legitimize the short term and immediate term because the long term still feels like we're heading in the right direction, but you can't ignore the run. We're not. I really hope this doesn't come across as being happy clappy and like blindly optimistic, because I don't think it is all bad, as weird as that sounds. But we obviously cannot ignore the fact that we haven't scored a goal from open play for I think a million years, and and obviously the club is the front line is devoid of confidence at the moment. And yeah, of course, coming away from the game, it was the same old feelings as, oh, we're not a million miles away. That was a decent performance, particularly in the first half. But, oh, we've lost again and we haven't scored again, or at least we haven't scored a goal that counted. And yeah, I understand your point, mate, about you can have that kind of, I suppose, bigger picture view, but you can be fed up of having that bigger picture view.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where I am as well. But I listened to a couple of things recently that have actually kind of perked me up a little bit from other clubs, weirdly, which is maybe changed my view on us. But when it comes to the Bolton game directly, I completely get what you're saying. But let's talk about it from the start, because I think going into this game, well, I think even just in terms of lineups, though, that it told quite a big story, I think, for both clubs, because this is a competition that we'd made a lot of changes in every other match. And we named a pretty strong lineup, a lineup that would not look out of place at all in League One this season for us. With that, for me, was an indication that we wanted to see this as a bit of a confidence-boosting, morale-boosting match. Hopefully, we could put a strong side out against a weakened Bolton team, and go through to the next round off the back of a good performance. And then Bolton
didn't happen, did it?
Same thing, didn't they? Because they're, of course, in a challenging situation themselves in terms of form. I think they've still got incredibly good individuals, by the way, in terms of players. But they're obviously compared to their expectations, really underachieving at the moment. So what that meant is you've got two very strong sides lining up in a competition that no one really cares about, or at least on paper. So that meant for a tougher game than I think any of us really wanted. But we started brilliantly.
Yeah, I thought we were, as you say, the fact the lineup was essentially what it was from both sides. I thought to myself, oh, are we going for this? And then, as you say, you see the Bolton lineup, you go, I think they're also going for this. And you start to worry a little bit, because obviously the league game is still relatively fresh in the memory. There were obviously extenuating circumstances around the league game, which, you can kind of put to the back of your mind. But yeah, it felt like we were going for really going to be going for it last night. And for the first 20 minutes or so, essentially until their goal, I thought we looked really, really dangerous. I thought we were sharp. We were keeping it on the floor. We were, really nice patterns of play. There was, I think, the first real effort that we had was just a joy to watch. I mean, it was lovely football. I think there was the moment the ball comes across, Rico gets it and basically spins his man, puts the ball across. And how it didn't go in, I don't know. But, it was one of those, and you look at it, you go, oh, this is Lincoln City. Yeah, this is what I've been enjoying this season. This is, we're back to how we were.
It looked like us, didn't it? It looked like the identity of the Lincoln City that we all recognise. And I think there's been flashes of that recently, but there's been certain games where we haven't seen much of it at all, if any of it. Like the Rotherham and Shrewsbury games are particularly coming to mind in that regard. Even in the dodgy run, we've looked like us at times, but it maybe felt that we've stepped away from that a little bit recently. So it was. I think I said to you guys at half time, didn't I, on our group chat? This isn't me being like overly positive. This isn't me having rose tinted glasses. Like we were good in that half. That was a good performance, wasn't it, in the first half? And like you say, particularly up until the point that they scored, we were by far the better team. And this might come as music to ears of people. I'm not going to talk too much about stats tonight at all in anything we're talking on. But in terms of just pure shots, we had 14 shots in the first half. Bolton only had 4. So I suppose a lot of the criticism in terms of we haven't looked particularly creative. We haven't really made shooting opportunities in recent matches. We did. We had 14 shots in that first half. Now, only 1 was on target. That tells its own story, of course.
Yeah.
But
that was kind of
we were getting there really well.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was going to come to, because I suppose we've heard it before and we've seen it before. where if you've got if you've got strikers that aren't getting chances, if they're not missing chances, then that's bad enough. Or no, that's probably worse than if they are missing chances, because ultimately, eventually, one of those chances will go in. However, we are now I'm trying to think of, is it 9 hours, I think, without a goal that's not a penalty.
Yeah.
And, my mind is immediately thrown back to the goal of the month competition, 2023, I think it was, in December, where we scored one goal from a penalty.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, I remember that as well. And that one goal of the
it
month,
was,
didn't it?
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is getting a bit sad. And yeah, I look, it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of getting really, really down, really, really angry about things, and losing your temper, losing your mind. If you're looking for impotent rage and just outright, ranting, this probably isn't going to be the podcast for you tonight, because there are things to take from it. And I don't know how many times I can say there are things to take from that game without sounding like a broken record, because at the minute, yes, we are one game in 11 in the league, I think. No.
Yeah, I think we've won 1 in 16 in all competitions.
Yeah. So, I mean, is it 1 in 16?
Something like that. Yeah, I'm doubting myself now, but it's
a
long
4.
time. It's one win in quite a long time. So obviously that's near enough. The point still stands.
Yeah, I'm seeing 4 in 16.
That might be it.
But yeah, like even so, it's just not. It's not great, and I think the problem is, without straying too far from the game, which we will obviously come back to a little bit. I think the thing is, at the moment, nobody is trying to gloss over the fact that it's bad. Nobody's sat there going, "Oh, everything's fine." Like, we all know that the run at the moment is poor, but it's a poor run of form. For me, it's a poor run of form from a number of individuals, but the core of it, like the nucleus of everything that we're trying to do, is still there, and that was shown in that. It was shown off at its best, shall we say, in that first 20 minutes. I thought we looked really, really good, and then there was a mistake.
Yes,
and unfortunately, at the moment, what people are finding out is if Lincoln City make a mistake, then you will probably score against Lincoln City.
Yes, and because we're really struggling at the other end of the pitch to put it in the net, you only need to score one goal to beat us normally at the moment. And yeah, often those mistakes are coming from individual errors. And this sounds strange, but that's kind of a positive in a way. Because if there was something tactical, nothing tactical. So that means that there's nothing wrong from a defensive standpoint, really, in terms of our overall defensive solidity, style, structure. Individuals you don't want individuals to make mistakes. The higher you go up the leagues, the fewer mistakes are made, of course. And you tend to find the more experienced players are, the less mistakes they make. But it's from like a tactical point of view, it's better to concede because you've made a mistake than it is because you're tactically kind of inferior, because that it's repeatable then, isn't it? If it's tactically inferior, teams can exploit that. If it's just a mistake, that's going to happen once now and then. But it just means that two things are happening at the moment, which is we're not scoring when we're on top, which is a massive thing because that changes games hugely. And then what that does mean is that when you're susceptible to conceding, and that sounds obvious, but if you make a mistake and you concede a goal, it just changes game, massively changes goals. Goals change games, either side. Emotionally, football's an emotional sport. It changes games emotionally. It changes teams in terms of like confidence. It often changes games tactically as well. Like, goals have a huge impact on football. I know that doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. We all know that, don't we? We all see it with our eyes. But I think it's stark, isn't it? Like, that it is fine margins at times. Like, I think Zach made the right decision to come for it. By the way, long ball comes over, clearance really. Zach comes for it and then stalls and then commits. And by that point, I think it's Collins that gets there ahead of him. Defender, I think it was Jacko, was it? Maybe Pordy got a block in initially, but it's a really high quality chance. Like you'd expect to score from that situation. They did eventually. Big mistake.
By that point, I think by that point it was essentially 3-on-2, wasn't it?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the odds aren't exactly in your favour at that stage.
If your keeper's not in the goal, and you've got a chance to get a shot away, then you're probably quite likely to score. So it's just really unfortunate. But it's a prime example of us at the moment, really. But it's not a tactical mistake. So I feel sorry for Zach because he was brilliant against Birmingham, and hopefully he'll get over that. Goalkeepers make mistakes. That's normal, and when they do, it leads to a goal normally. So they stand out. I'm not here to point a huge amount of blame or to really kind of go in hard on Zach. It happens, it happens. He's played 2 games in the Blue Moon, so if he's going to make a mistake, I'd rather be in this competition, as frustrating as that feels right now. But what that meant is that we were one goal down massively against a run of play, and dare I say, again. But we actually reacted quite well. I think we continue to play our football. We continue to create reasonable chances, albeit not at the same extent as we maybe had before the goal. But then we had a really good opportunity. Won a corner. Ball comes in. Goal. Oh, relief. Relief, Ben. The relief I felt. And I've got in the habit recently. I'm normally pretty good with spotting offsides. Eagle eye. Especially when off a cross. You have a look over to the lino. Think, flag's down.
Well,
I can celebrate. Yes, we finally scored a goal from a... And
that's the
something
thing.
Bizarre happened, didn't it?
Yeah. So usually you say you get good at spotting the lino, right? I'm usually pretty good at that myself. Like if the ball goes in, first thing you do immediately have a look at the lino. Right, it's given. Away we go. We're having fun. The fact that the linesman didn't put his flag up was like, oh, okay, that's relatively surprising. Because initially, when the ball went in, I thought Rico was offside. Then I thought to myself, okay, well, let's see the replay. And sure enough, the replay showed that Rico ran in from between 2 defenders to get the touch on the ball there. So I was like, oh, so why is he? What's going on here? The fact that the linesman didn't put his flag up, and then the only reason that goal is disallowed is because Ian Evatt and his players were complaining massively to the referee.
As is their right, by the way. I would hope my players would do the same if a decision is going against you. However, from an officiating point of view,
it's awful.
You should absolutely not be influenced by a player or a manager whatsoever. Now, we've watched this back 100 times, and it's quite difficult to see from the angle. There's only one camera, of course, for this competition. So the angle that's there, and also not everyone's in the shot at the same time. It's quite really difficult to see whether it actually was the correct decision or not. I think we've kind of agreed that if no one gets a touch on it, Rico's not offside. If Jovan does get a touch on it, maybe that's what it's given for.
Yeah.
But it's weird, isn't it, that not a lot's been made of this decision in the reaction from the game, but it feels like a legitimate goal has been chalked off. And for us, in the grand scheme of things, a confidence boosting and like pressure valve releasing goal has been chalked off kind of unfairly because of the way that the decision was made. So that's a frustration. You can't dwell on it, but it's obviously a frustration. And when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we've said repeatedly over the past few weeks, isn't it? That, it doesn't feel like one thing's gone wrong. It feels like a lot's gone wrong. I think the culmination of that was obviously the league game away at Bolton, where lots of things just seem to implode all at the same time. But for me, I don't necessarily have a problem with the goal being being chalked off, because when you look back at it, like you say, it's tight, but I think Jovan is offside.
Yeah. Based on the manner of the decision.
Yeah, but it's the way that it's given. Like, the linesman doesn't put his flag up, the referee doesn't blow for it, and he only goes over to his assistant, after confrontation from the Bolton players. And then at that point, him and the linesman have a discussion. I'd love to know what that discussion was about. But then he's like, oh, yeah, it is actually offside. It's like, well, number one, the referee can't see that he's offside. I did actually see that somebody said that he very, very briefly put his flag up and then put it back down straight away.
Yeah.
So
well, he certainly wasn't holding his flag up when we were all celebrating, was he?
As you should be doing if you're a linesman. But anyway,
yes.
Yeah, it was...
I would hate for this to become us just pointing and shouting at referees and linesmen and blaming that, because it isn't all about that. Because but it was a big factor in the game, and when goals are so hard to come by for us at the moment, I think whenever we have one that feels unfairly chalked off, it impacts how you feel, doesn't it? But I think we were pretty good after that. I think we reacted quite well. We still had a few more chances, albeit nothing hugely clear cut, but we were at least creating reasonable opportunities, had box entries with runs and deliveries, albeit not always brilliant deliveries. But we for the first, I would say 4/5 as a pitch, we were like genuinely good in that first half, bar a mistake from a goalkeeper and potentially an officiating error. So at half time, I thought that was a really good performance. Results frustrating, but like we're all right here. Like if we continue in this vein, I actually had some confidence that we'd score a goal, because we did look like scoring in that first half, which is not something we've been able to say often recently. But sadly, in the second half, that didn't really continue. Now, I have never disagreed with a Michael Skubala post-match press conference, but I think I did a tiny little bit in this one, in that he rightly said we were good in the first half. I think he said we still offered a threat in the second. I don't think we offered much of a threat in the second half, personally. I think we had 17 shots in the whole game. We had 14 in the first half. So we didn't get that final action away. We didn't create a huge amount. We did have a few box entries again, but I didn't think we were anywhere near as good in the second half. I think that was partly down to Bolton and partly down to one thing that I would like to touch on a little bit of depth, which is confidence. But I think from Bolton perspective here, they did manage the game brilliantly in the second half. That's something that they have got down to a T. It's frustrating watching it. Every set piece takes half an hour for it to be taken, and they only get a yellow card for time wasting in the 91st minute, which is pointless at that point. But that's credit to them, and that's their prerogative to do it. They had a lead to protect, and fair play to them. So I think there's always one thing that's worth bearing in mind whenever you analyse a game, is that there's an opposition that you're playing against who want to win just as much as you do, and we almost forget that at times. But I think from a Lincoln City perspective, we didn't quite play with the same intensity or connectivity as we did in the first half. Michael made 4 changes on 67 minutes, a quadruple substitution. Didn't really have the desired impact, sadly. And I think it kind of fizzled out. And at half-time, I felt like we would score in the first, or up until half-time, I really felt like we were going to score. In the second half, at no point did I really seriously believe that we would. And that's a shame, of course. We haven't put 90 minutes of a performance together for a long time. Absolutely taking encouragement from the first 45, but the second 45 was obviously not very good, and or nowhere near as good as we'd like it to be. But the big thing for me is I think you could just see the confidence draining away. The longer the game went on, the less belief there was in the team, and probably therefore in the crowd, that we would actually get a goal, and therefore we just looked less and less and less likely. And I think that's something that I said stats earlier. Everyone that's listening and watching knows I think it helps tell a story. I don't think it tells the whole story, but I think it helps tell a story and give you a perspective. But you can't measure confidence, but you can see it. You absolutely can see it, and you can feel it. And particularly the front line is just severely lacking it at the moment. And it's not just the centre forwards; it's the creative element as well, and making the right decision at the right moment in that last couple of actions, not just the last one. And that's the concerning part for me. It is not tactical at all. I think it is confidence and psychological. Now, obviously, I've been talking a lot, so I'll be shut up in a minute. But there's one thing I'd like to touch on before I do be quiet and let you actually say something, which is links onto the tactical stuff. Because I think I've seen people say that we've been found out tactically. And I just really don't think that's the case at all. I don't think it's possible to be found out tactically if you have changed your tactical approach as often as we have in the last month and a half. We've played back fours and back threes. We've played high wing backs, low wing backs. We've played a 10 in behind a striker. We've played one up top. We've played no 10s and 2 8s. Like we have changed system and kind of style quite regularly. I actually think that's been to our detriment. Personally, I think that's probably one of the reasons why we haven't seen a huge amount of connectivity and cohesion at times in some games, maybe we've played to the opposition too much. But I get the idea. You're searching for that winning formula. But I don't think you can. I don't think you can criticise being found out tactically and tinkering too much. Like if both those things can't happen at the same time, because if you're changing your tactics, you can't be predictable. So I don't think there's anything in the tactical being found out tactically. I think the first half yesterday showed that tactically we're pretty good at getting there. We're pretty good at keeping teams out on the whole. It's not systemic as mentioned. It is personal. It's individual. If we do concede, I don't think there's a lot wrong, but I think that confidence element is massively, massively important. So I will be quiet now and let you say something.
No, I agree. I think the thing that really frustrated me last night was that when the goal goes in, the immediate thought is, well, that's the game, and it's getting to that point now where all you've got to do is somehow get a goal, whether that's through an absolute worldie like Birmingham's second at the weekend, or a mistake from ourselves last night, or even if someone just shithouses a goal, if someone can go ahead against us, they've got an extremely good chance right now of taking all 3 points.
Yes,
because you could see it like as soon as the goal went in, and there's a reason that we're saying for the first 20 minutes we look really good. Like we look genuinely great, I thought. As soon as that goal goes in, heads drop, and there's just, like you say, there's just a vacuum where the confidence just gets sucked out of all the players. And it's so frustrating to watch because we all know that they're all capable. Like there's not necessarily, well, there weren't any changes in personnel. There weren't necessarily any changes in the tactical approach after the goal. So what changed? And the only thing that you can think of is it's those intangibles. We say it all the time that it's not necessarily all about the tangible stuff in football. It's about those things that you can't put your finger on. You can't quite understand what's going on. And I just think at the moment, if we concede, heads drop. We don't necessarily know what to do when it turns around. And it sounds like, well, I say it sounds like, it feels like it might be because of the approach that we're taking to things in terms of the personnel. I mean, obviously, the whole moniker of like the younger squad and everything else has been slowly chipped away with some of the signings that we've made. And I think that the comment was made a few weeks back where you can't say that we're a young squad anymore. We put a young side out because I think the average age was 26, 27. So I appreciate, yes, there are some young players there, and a lot of those are going to be the key players, the likes of, Bailey Cadamartri, Joe McCarmer, Freddie Draper.
Yeah, we've got a young front line.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's in the front. It's in the attack that not naivety, but the lack of knowing how to deal with it comes in, I think.
Yeah, it's a domino effect at times, isn't it? Because
yes.
You don't take your chances when you're on top, firstly, which then leaves the door open for a team to score a shithouse goal, as you mentioned, out of nowhere against a run of play. But if you don't take your chances, then you always run the risk of that. And like you say, once that happens relatively consistently, then confidence drains, and we're at the point that we are now. But it is young players, generally speaking, that tend to feel that more. They are human at the end of the day. We sometimes see them as robots, but they're all human beings. Pressure is real. I'm sure we've all felt pressure at work. Imagine doing that with thousands of people watching you and, calling you out online and stuff. Like of course it impacts people. If you're a professional football, I think you kind of, that's part of the course. You take the rough with the smooth. I think Jack Morland was pretty good when he said that in his interview after the game yesterday. He's like, yeah, look, we're happy to take the praise, so we've got to take it on the chin when things aren't too good as well. We'll take responsibility for all of it. Fair play to him for that, by the way. Mm-hmm. But I think in that front line, particularly, we've got a young front line. You're right. Of course, they're capable. I think we can all have opinions in what their strengths are, but I think they've all got potential all three of them have got potential to have really good careers at this level, and if not higher, even if that not with how they're performing right now in this very moment. Because those intangibles massively impact your performance, and particularly on those front players. When you don't see as much of the ball, you're judged on really quick moments in matches, and if you don't take them, then obviously the direction that games go in changes hugely. What I will say is experienced players generally are a little bit more thick-skinned in regards to just they've experienced it all before. Normally, they've had the highs and the lows of a football career so far, and they're obviously generally able to deal with those moments in games and have that calmness and that consistency more than young players do, generally speaking. So I completely understand what Michael Subala is saying, is that we've got plenty of young players in the squad. Long term's looking really strong, but right now they need a helping hand. They need someone to take the pressure off them and someone to have that bit of calmness and know-how. And I honestly do think that is all it is. And that might be one or two players, a midfielder and a centre forward potentially of an experienced kind of profile. We've seen the value that experience can add, like in Tendai. We've seen the impact that he can have. So one in each department makes total sense to me. I don't want us to completely change our model. I like our model. I think it's smart long term to set our club up to be able to punch above its weight.
You've said the M word.
Oh yeah, it's fine, whatever. But I do feel that there's real value in adding some experience to help those lads out, particularly one in each department makes sense. So I suppose the last point on this before we move on is, not directly about the Bolton game, but where are we as a club right now? We were performing really well at the start of the season. Were we actually massively overperforming then? Is this where we should? Is this actually where we are and we're really worrying? Or are we actually just underperforming now and not getting the points that we deserve? Like, honestly, I think we're in between the two. I think we're probably in the middle. All of the underlying metrics suggest we're pretty much mid-table. It feels rubbish right now, but I still maintain we're not a million miles away. It's not like there are lots of pieces of the jigsaw that are missing. There's one. We just need to support that. And one huge part of that jigsaw puzzle that we do have in place is Michael Skubala. 100% think he should stay in place. I don't think getting rid of him and making a change in management makes any impact at all on the pitch whatsoever. I think we've seen he knows what he's doing in terms of building and coaching a successful squad in a style that works. Like, as a team, we just need a bit of luck as much as anything.
Yeah,
and I completely understand the questions over a manager, because in all of football, any manager is going to be questioned with any one winning however long we've won, particularly no goals from open play. Understand it, but I just think there's so much more to it than this. There's a lot more nuance to it. Skubala is a brilliant manager, a good bloke as well, which I think really helps. And he's going to be feeling as much as anyone. He's not stupid. He knows what we need just as much as we all do, if not more so. I cannot get on board at all with that at the moment. And I don't think he'll be experiencing any pressure internally at all. What I will say, though, is we've got two really big games coming up against Northampton and Peterborough. Like, if we don't get wins against those, or at least a win, then I think the pressure will understandably will really ramp up. But right now, I just cannot get on board with that. I think we all know what we need, and if we're able to get that, hopefully things will turn around. And if we do win on Saturday against Northampton, everything will feel so much better.
Yeah, I think, I'm not in I'm not in the camp of clamoring for a manager's head as soon as things start to go wrong. It's not how we've done it as a club. It's not how Clive's done it as a chairman. You look at the record that we've had at this point. With Mark Kennedy aside, when was the last time that we actually fired a manager?
Before Clive Nates came in.
Yeah. So it's, we've got the managers who've left the football club. We've got Michael Appleton. It was mutual consent. And, that was not he's fired, but it's mutual consent. Like, all accounts suggest that was genuinely, I think we've probably gone as far as we can take each other. So let's call it there. Obviously, Danny and Nicky, we knew the reasoning for their leaving.
Even Chris Moyes, who
and I was going to say Chris Moyes before then. He stepped down to make way for the next part of the process. So, I mean, if we were a hire and fire football club, I think we'd be in a very, very, very different position than we actually are right now.
Yes, and every football club's different. Every situation is different, so you can't really always compare it directly. But I completely agree with you. I referenced earlier, didn't I, about listening to something recently? Listen to the brilliant podcast NTT20 did and released, I think, today or yesterday with Richie Wellens, and it was really good, really insightful. I really like Richie Wellens as a manager. I think he is Leyton Orient's biggest asset, to be honest. But there's a couple of similarities between Leyton Orient's early season and where we find ourselves now. And that patience has 100% proved its worth. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go and win 10 on the spin. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to go and put a run together like we did last season, which was magical. But I think we're going to be pretty comfortable. Honestly, I still believe we're going to be pretty comfortable become the end of the season. We're probably going to finish similar to where we are in the league now, if not maybe 1 or 2 places higher. And I think patience is rewarded often in football, and it doesn't happen very often that you get it. I think Michael Scribola will be given it because he is only one small cog of a far bigger wheel, really. And we just need to add one or two little bits to that kind of greater picture, and we'll be all right. We'll be all right. And is there anything else you wanted to mention, by the way, on the Bolton game or the general situation? Because if not, that'd be a lovely segue into talking about Sam Clucas.
Well, we are at 35 minutes, so I think it will actually be a segue into a break.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, no, I just think at the moment, like I say, it's very easy to get angry. It's very easy to get upset about things. I don't want to be the person that downplays any opinions or any fears or anything like that. Like, everybody is absolutely entitled to believe at the moment what they want to believe about the football club. I think my personal belief is that, yes, we're on a bad run, but are we in a bad place? I don't necessarily think so as a football club. And it goes back to the thing that Liam said before about, weather and climate. You have an awful day, or, you have a week where it's rained and rained and rained and rained, but overall, it's not too bad. Like, you can look forward to next week, and you can look forward to the sun coming out and drying up the puddles in the driveway, whatever it's going to be. I just think right now we're obviously in a bad place, and nobody is going to be sugarcoating that. Like, there is, I almost wonder when people think, or when people say things like, "Oh, what are they talking about?" I saw somebody suggesting that Clive and Liam need to make a statement, and I just think, well, what are they going to say? Are they going to come out and say, "We know things are crap. We've got a plan. We're putting it into action"? Because essentially, number one, that's all they can say publicly. I don't think they're going to come out and go, "By the way, we need to buy 2 strikers, we need to buy a midfield, we need to buy a defender." Because as soon as you say publicly, "This is what we're after," those price tags just it skyrockets. And with the way that football is at the moment, particularly in League One, we're fighting in such a massive pool of money with a tiny little wad just kind of, "Can we have the thing, please?" And then someone else just comes in with a massive wallet and bats us out the way and just goes, "No, I'll buy that instead." All the talk of Joe Taylor signing, all of the hope that we all had, and then Huddersfield come along and go, "Oh, here's 3 million quid." So, right, okay. Well,
just goes to show that we're just not fishing in the same pond as those teams. And we shouldn't be. I think for various reasons we shouldn't.
I do think it's going to be. Well, we know it's going to be chaos later on in the month anyway, because I think we said a couple of weeks ago the accounts are probably due in a couple of weeks. So it's just going to be an extremely interesting day, shall we say, when that happens, because we will see. I mean, I'm assuming that the losses are going to be more than last year. They'll probably be offset by the sales of Lucas Jensen and Lars Sorensen, but I anticipate that we'll probably see a loss of around £3.5 to £4 million. And at that point, if that does come in, what are we going to, how are people going to react to that? It's like, "Oh, well, we need more we need more money." It's like, well, you can't have it both ways. And I've said this before. You can't have, or you can't say we shouldn't be losing £3.5 million a year, or whatever the figure's going to be, and then go, "Why haven't we paid £3 million for Joe Taylor?" Because at that point, it would be £6.5 million plus his wages. And it's like, we are a tiny fish right now fighting in a massive pond against some enormous clubs. But look, I think we are nearly 40 minutes in now.
Yeah, so, we've said we'll have a break and then we carried on talking.
Yeah, we will take a break for a couple of minutes. So those of you that are watching live on YouTube, stick around. We'll say hello. Those of you that are listening on the audio, we will see the other side of a commercial break. Hello, YouTube. Right,
Hi,
who have we
YouTube.
got in tonight? We've got Andy is in, as always. How we doing? Neil is in. Steve is in. Other Steve is in. Evening, gents. No angry Gaz. No, no. It was me and Chris scheduled for tonight.
Yeah, we didn't kick him off or anything.
No.
It was rotated on.
No, he's not. He's not sulking. Steve says, "How are you two still smiling? I'm on my worst frame of mind in many years." I understand it. Like after the game last night, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt kind of nothing. I was just like, oh, well, that's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel all right. Like, I don't like losing. Obviously, I get really impacts the day. I'm not here to tell people how to feel. You can look after yourself, can't you? And I try not to let football make that much of an impact on my overall state of mind. I think just quickly on just a general state of the club, though. Like I said, all the bigger picture stuff hasn't changed for me, and that gives me comfort. That I still 100% believe that everything's okay behind the scenes and we're moving in the right direction. And we're privileged to maybe have a little bit more context towards that than the average supporter, and we're really lucky to have that. And
I think as well,
gives me peace of mind.
But I think on that, it's quite important that like, yes, we do acknowledge that and we do talk about that, but I think that what we do and what we try and do is put that context across to people. And if that, if that never come, or if that doesn't come out, or if it seems like, we're being overly optimistic or, less cautious than others would be for whatever reason it is, I think the good thing about the audience that we have now is that, if people say to us, well, that's not right because X, Y, Z, and we can turn around and go, well, okay, maybe it's not been explained well enough.
Yeah,
I think
there's another perspective sometimes.
Yeah, and
once you have all the information, you can make a more informed opinion, can't you? And we have the ability to do that, maybe more so than some people have the privilege to do. And all we try and do is put that across. What I will say is, even though that's all the case, we can't ignore the fact and just kind of put our fingers in our ears and close our eyes and go la 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 la. Imagine that the run we're on isn't existing. Of course, that is a concern, and if it continues, it's a really, really, really big concern. But at the moment, like I say, that I've got comfort from the bigger picture, and I still have genuine belief that we're going to be okay in the next couple of games, and from there. Now, if it turns out that we're not in 2 matches time, then I think there'll be a very different perspective.
Yeah, there's some more conversations to be had.
Yeah, at the moment we're all right. We've got 2 winnable games coming up.
Yeah. So Steve says, rumour has it we are 15th in the financial stakes, but we're 12th in the league. That's the real measure. Absolutely, but it's a nuance that I don't think a lot of people are willing to have when it comes to discussions about their football club.
Well, I don't think we ever want to see it as an excuse, because I know for a fact the board don't want to use anything along those lines as an excuse, because we do still have ambitions of punching well above our weight. I think what is clear this season is that those punches have got to reach a lot further this season than they did last, despite us actually potentially having a slightly bigger budget than we did last season. I think you're going to have to look at the squad size to know that that's the case. So I think what's probably happened is we're spending a little bit more than we were last season on our squad, and we've gone probably backwards in regards to our spending compared to everyone else in the league. Now, whether it's 15th or maybe even potentially slightly higher, maybe even lower than that, that's the case. That may be the case, but I think that punching up is a bigger, longer punch now, and there's a reality to that. I think mentioning that at this time of the season when we're in a bad run might come across as an excuse, and I don't think that the optics of that would be very good. But I think there's a reality there that it will be have an impact on us compared to our competitors in terms of squad building. Of course it does.
Yeah, I suppose at the same time earlier in the season when you're there going, oh, well, we're third in the table, but we have the 15th lowest budget, whatever it is, it's seen as blowing your own a bit too much. I don't think they can ever win on that one. But
yeah, I think it's important for context from a fan's perspective, just to bear in mind that is probably the case. But I think from the club to use that as whether a positive or a negative at any point, I think it can be construed in different ways. So I think they try and avoid that. I think from our perspective, it's just whenever we get really angry or really overly carried away at winning, we always need to keep that in mind, I think, because where actually are we compared to everybody else?
Indeed. We've got Ed is in. Evening, Ed. We've got MK Spokes is in. Flossie says we're a League One club in a tough group. Fans need to keep it real. Absolutely. Andy says Bolton have just accepted an offer from Huddersfield for Dion Charles. That's what we're fighting against. I mean, yeah, we just bought Joe Taylor. Let's buy Dion Charles as well. Of course, why not? And then glad we don't sack managers willy-nilly. Look at Watford, a basket case of a club. Absolutely. extremely pleased that we are not in there. Shoes. Right. Let's come back in and we'll talk about Mr. Clucas.
Indeed.
And there we go. That has been a commercial break. We don't necessarily know who, as ever, we have sponsoring us. I don't think we've got any bespoke ones coming up at the moment, but I'm sure you'll hear them when we do. So, Chris, you saw someone last night, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw Sam Clucas. I don't think I was the only person. I think it was pretty obvious that Sam Clucas was at the game yesterday. Now, of course, that could just be a local guy coming to watch his local team. So I'm not going to say we're definitely going to sign Sam Clucas, but I think the fact he was there maybe brings those questions back up again in that, well, maybe there is actually something in that. I mentioned this on the pod last week with Gaz when it first came up, and I think I maybe came across a little bit negative. And all I wanted to do was offer again, perspective, both angles, because there's the romantic side of it, of young lad, a lad, Lincoln boy, never really got a chance at his local club, had a really good career, hasn't played below the Championship other than this season since 2015 or something like that, and wants to come back and help his local team out for unfinished business. There's the romantic side of that, which is brilliant. And if that's how it transpires, all of us are going to be super duper happy. I suppose the question I would have would, how excited would we be if it was anyone else that wasn't Sam Clucas that was playing the first half of the season in the National League at 34 years of age? Glass half full, glass half empty. Which way would you look at it? I think it does offer a couple of questions, though. I'm definitely coming around to the idea. I think, again, Tandai showing the value of experience and having one of those in each department of the pitch, one defender, one midfield, one forward, potentially, probably adds a hell of a lot on and off the pitch. So I could certainly make sense from that point of view. I may be struggling to see it make sense tactically. Reason for this is obviously JJ's gone out on loan to get much needed game time. Makes total sense. He's a long-term option in that role. Sam generally has played central midfield. Most recently, he's been really versatile in his career, but I think he's settled to central midfield, and most recently, by most recently, I mean like in the last 5 or 6 years. So it's not like last week. So where does he fit in? Well, if we're going to play a midfield three, which I think we're best when we do. I think we look light when we don't. I think most of us have probably agreed that Jack Morland is better suited to feature in our team. I think we look more threatening with him there, despite his maybe decision-making issues now and then. I think, that's definitely worth. That's kind of the pros outweigh the cons of that. I think Jack is really creative and tries to make things happen. So I think we look a better team and more threatening team with Jack Morland in the team. He's not, of course, incapable of playing on the right of that midfield three, but he certainly prefers to be on the left-hand side. He's got a real skill of drifting into that left-hand kind of half space, cutting in and shooting. I think you'd obviously lose that if he played on the right of the three. Sam Clucas is left-footed, by the way, just to make that pretty clear. So would that mean that he's going to play in that left-hand of the three role with Jack on the right? That then means Conor McGrandles, Ethan Hamilton, and Tom Bayliss are fighting for bench places. They've all got roles to play, I think. So that's interesting. I can see it making sense if we were to add genuine cover for Ethan Arahan. If Ethan was to be injured, for example, then we've got a ready-made replacement that can go in there and play a similar role, though I think Sam likes to play further forward if he can. Or, of course, in an eventuality that we sell Ethan, but that then doesn't strengthen the squad overall. It only kind of really evens it out. So, I think from a tactical point of view, it asks a few questions, but I don't think that's impossible. Maybe it frees up the option to play like a 3-4-1-2. So still a 3-5-2, but with 2 6s and a 10, allowing Jack a bit more freedom potentially ahead of the two. But then you've got 2 left footers in there. So I don't know. There are question marks, I think, from a tactical perspective. Yet it absolutely makes sense in some regard. So it's a really, really interesting one. I think we can all get on board with the romantic side of it. Yeah. I think there are pros and cons from a on the pitch element.
Yeah, my biggest concern is that one of where does he fit in and who does he fit in place of? As we say, JJ going out on loan to get the game time. I've just got the, up in front of me at the moment, central defenders. We've obviously got Ethan Arahan, we've got Tom Bayliss, central / attacking, midfielders, wherever that midfield three are going to be. Mm-hmm. We've got Ethan Bayliss, Ethan Hamilton, we've got Conor McGrandles, we've got Jack Moylan.
And Dom Jeffries, really,
and Dom
as
Jeffries,
well as a player who's been really versatile.
Yeah, like I don't see how we can realistically bring in another central midfielder or somebody that can play in that three without severely disrupting the players that are there already. I don't think, and call me naive, call me whatever, I don't think the midfield has necessarily been the problem. Or the middle three, I don't think have necessarily been the problem. I think the issues have come from maybe some of, as you say, some of Jack Moylan's decision making or some of the decision making from that 10 role. You can probably make that argument, but on the whole, I don't think the middle three have done too much wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we have chopped and changed a little bit in there.
Yeah.
But I think, like, long term, the best version of us includes Ethan Arahan and Jack Moylan, and ever improving Jack Moylan, I think, in terms of long term. So then there's one other one, and you got like 4 players already in that regard. But I think one thing that Sam absolutely adds that we don't have really in that area of the pitch, other than Ethan Arahan, is just real calmness and composure, and throughout his career been an incredibly reliable and consistent footballer. He's been dependable. That's the reason that he's had the career he has, and has come from the non-league all the way up to the Premier League, and then not played lower than the Championship for every season, other than the start of this, of course, at Oldham. So I think there's absolutely a huge skill set there that adds to something we haven't really got a huge amount of at the moment. And there's of course there's the off-pitch benefits you can bring, that just leadership, experience, professionalism as well. That can only rub off positively. But it's just if we bring him in, someone's going to miss out, aren't they? And I don't think there's anyone in the midfield selection at the moment that like deserves to miss out, really. No. So that'll be an interesting dynamic. But yeah, the romantic side of it is brilliant. There are definitely pros to it. I just don't know I don't think if we only bring Sam Clucas in this window that our problems are going to be solved. Can he be a part of helping those problems improve? Yes, I think he can. But I don't think it is the missing piece of the jigsaw. But I think it'll be a useful piece to have.
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be it. And obviously we know at the moment that the missing piece of the jigsaw does potentially seem to be somebody that can finish chances and do it well and consistently. It sounds like in order to maybe replicate what he managed to do at Walsall, that there have been rumours that Freddie Draper is on his way to Notts County on loan. Now, I'll be honest, I'd not heard of this until just before we started recording. So, Chris, I will let you take this one away.
Yeah, so it's only one report. So, but news now tends to be semi-reliable. It's not just a Twitter page that's just making things up willy-nilly. If it's on news now, there's an element of legitimacy as a resource or a source, to be able to get on that site. And I just saw that there was links there. I don't know how much I believe it, because they've got Jatta and McGoldrick up there at the moment. So I don't know what he would add specifically other than squad depth for them at the moment. But if he can guarantee game times for him, then yeah, I think it's the question, because it's something I hadn't really considered, because I felt that Fred has a skill set that when he's on form, I think no one else in our squad has. And of all the players that we've played in that front line, as much as he's had plenty of appearances off the bench, he's only had 3 starts this season in the league. He's got 2 goals, by the way, as well from those 3 starts. So he hasn't really had a fair crack of the whip. So does that mean, and if that means that we know we need experience in that front line for the here and now, does that actually mean that he's not going to get that run of starts in the team because we need something more immediate now, and we have the patience in this very moment to allow him that? Does a loan make sense for him to go and get some regular game time? It's different with Jovan. Jovan is playing regularly, is offering threat again, looking like a confidence in front of goal, but I think offers threat now in other areas. And if we bring someone else in, he'll probably be more of an impact player than a starter. But that puts Freddie further down the pecking order, doesn't it? And so whether it's Notts County or someone else in League Two, I think I didn't even consider this until a few hours ago, but it kind of makes sense, again, as a development loan, not as a get rid, and he's not good enough. Anything along those lines, I think he's got real potential. He's shown that on his loans before. He hasn't really had a run of games as a start ever since he's come back from Walsall. So maybe he needs that again in the second half of the season. So it actually makes more sense than maybe I gave it credit for when I first read it. Whether it's Notts or just someone else in League Two, because I think he'll have plenty of suited in League Two, by the way. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye out. And if it means, from a financial perspective, it frees us up to bring someone else in, then maybe it's something I can get behind. But I would hate for us to bring someone in and then be short in that front line. I think we definitely need 4 as a minimum if we're going to play 2 up top, which I think we look better when we play 2 up top. So it's interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I think a loan will be beneficial to Freddie at this point, on the proviso that there is a replacement, for want of a better word. Obviously, it will be a numbers replacement rather than a what like for like personnel replacement. But yeah, I think he's been just hit by this confidence issue. I think it seems to
be, as they all have.
Yeah, and it seems to be running its way through the squad. I just think it feels like it's hitting, as we said, the younger players harder. And I think, unfortunately, Freddie's been a victim of circumstance in this, in that situation. So I can see it happening. I can see him going out on loan, potentially not to, well, maybe to Notts County, wherever it is he ends up. And we've seen what he's done in League Two before, and hopefully he can rediscover that spark that made us all clamouring to recall him last year. I mean, obviously,
exactly.
There were other circumstances where we needed to recall him last year. We didn't have a striker, but having as many as we've had this season, and whether it's the underperforming compared to the XG or whatever it is that they're not doing, I just think it's probably it's a decent confidence booster for Fred to go out and play in a division below his parent club and maybe think to himself, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this, and bang a few goals in.
As we mentioned earlier, confidence is massive, isn't it? And what do young players need more than anything? They need games, and they need time and patience. Yep. Because they're going to be inconsistent, they're going to make mistakes because they're young players. Like I imagine when we were learning on the job, we were in early, all of us listening and watching. I'm sure we've all made plenty of mistakes, which have then turned us into the people that we are now professionally. So, obviously, they're doing it in the public eye, and you can see it's challenging for all of them, not just Fred, all of them at the moment. But yeah, young players need patience, they need time, and they need opportunity. And I think right now, the situation that we find ourselves in the front line, probably they don't align too much at the moment. We probably can't really afford to do that when we're pretty desperate for some know-how in that area of the pitch and some experience. So this does make sense. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. It was one report I read, but the dots do kind of add up, do kind of align a little bit here, don't they?
Yeah,
to something. So yeah, that's Fred. We don't know, but wouldn't be surprised.
Indeed. Speaking of, what have I done there? Oh, sorry, I've just turned something off on my screen. Making mistakes at work. Just quickly away from it. I once managed to strip out some licensing for Microsoft Office for near enough an entire company, which meant that nobody could do their work for an afternoon, which was wonderful. Yeah, that was fun. So, right. Final other bits of news before we come on to the preview. Saxon's gone back to Plymouth. If you're not watching, me and Chris both just shrugged at the same time. It was something we knew was going to happen. Skibala said it, Jez said it, and it was confirmed earlier in the week. So
yeah, I thought it already had happened.
Yeah, that was it. Like when they said, "Oh, he'll be going back," I was like, "Okay, cool, that's that then." And yeah, the club announced it on Tuesday. So there we go. Right. Northampton at the weekend. We're away. Are we going to win or are we going to score, Chris?
Hope so. It's a big game. It's a really big game in the context of our overall season. It feels quite pivotal. These next two games against Northampton and Peterborough do, I think, a bad run and a lack of confidence compared to a crisis. I think these next two games maybe are a little bit of a crossroads depending on what direction we go towards or away from that word.
Yeah, I mean, Northampton are they're on a pretty poor run themselves at the moment. I mean, obviously they have just won their last game, but looking back through the results, it almost looks similar. If we look at the league, I mean, what we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2 wins in 13 games in the league. And yeah, one of those came at Bolton at the weekend, who I don't think will be a League One club next season.
No.
But yeah, they're on a bad run of form. I am due to record a preview with them with I think it's Danny from It's All Cobblers to Me. We'll get that. Should be live tomorrow morning. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those earlier on in the season. I think we didn't necessarily know what to expect from Northampton. They always seem to be a club that they're almost like perennially in flux. But 2-1 win at home. Obviously, they had a red card as well. It felt like a comfortable game, didn't it, at home? And
we were by far the better team in that game. I know we went goal down and we came back, but we were by far the better team for pretty much the whole 85 of the 90 minutes, other than a slow start. So, yeah, but there's a lot's changed since then at Northampton, because of course the big news for them is a new manager, and I thought Northampton would change anything and everything before they changed the manager in John Brady, but clearly not. Kevin Nolan has come back in to a first team management role for the first time for a little while. And his first match in charge was the 4-1 loss to Reading away. But that was only a couple of days after he was appointed. And that was there was Christmas in between him being appointed and the match being played. So I don't imagine he had a huge amount of time to really implement much. I don't even know if he was actually in charge for that game or not, to be honest. Since then, in the 3 games you can probably credit him with, they have played Shrewsbury, Stevenage and Bolton. So Shrewsbury and Bolton, obviously 2 kind of, I suppose, peers of theirs in regards to a potential relegation battle. A 1-1 draw away from Shrewsbury. Home 0-0 to Stevenage. And a 1-0 away win at Bolton. So unbeaten in 3, won their last game, pretty good. But actually, I think, even though Northampton have been on a really poor run recently and are quite a poorly performing team, I think if they hadn't changed their manager, you probably wouldn't be surprised at those 3 results. A 1-1 draw against Shrewsbury wouldn't be too surprising. A 1-0 win against bottom of the table Bolton wouldn't be too surprising. A 0-0 against Stevenage, who have just their games overall have had the fewest number of goals combined from both teams out of any team in League One. I don't think any of those results would be massively surprising, regardless of the managerial change or not. They have changed their shape in all 3 of those games as well. So I think he's searching for, as all managers will be at the starting point, searching for a solution. But in terms of confidence, something we mentioned quite a bit earlier, of course, off the back of a win, unbeaten in 3, that can only increase confidence at Northampton. Now, when a new manager comes in, particularly if a team is shipping goals, which Northampton were quite significantly, had the very worst expected goals in the league, had conceded the highest number of chances out of anybody. Conceded the most big chances, worst XG, and the goals that they were conceding was kind of in line with that. So they were performing defensively in line with what we'd expect, and it was crap. So any manager realistically that has that issue is going to try and come in and make a team hard to beat and improve the defensive stuff, improve the out of possession stuff as a foundation, which they have. If results and statistics from those last 3 games would go to show, they have improved significantly from a defensive standpoint, yet they have not improved at all from an attacking perspective. Now, their attacking issues are equally as bad as their defensive. Actually, they're one of the worst performing teams from an attacking point of view in the whole league. Lowest scorers, fewest goals from open play, only 9. Created the fewest number of big chances as well. So they weren't really creating a huge amount. And in terms of the numbers, in terms of the part of the pitch that they're taking their shots from, they're not taking shots from kind of dangerous areas. A lot of them are for kind of pot shots from away. So they really have a struggle in creating clear-cut opportunities. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? But believe it or not, we've actually created the 10th most big chances in the league, 46. Problem is, we've missed 32 of them. So
don't you just love that stuff?
Yeah, for us, we all know where the issue is. There's no surprises there. But I think it's worth pointing out that as much as Northampton maybe have similar issues on paper, like that they really do struggle in terms of creativity, but they don't have the defensive solidity to back that up. They are really struggling, but they have improved the defensive element. But I don't think we're going to be too threatened consistently from repeatable attacking patterns, like we maybe were against Birmingham at home, for example. So, yeah, I can't see us being massively troubled our end of the pitch. Now, we know they only need half a chance or a mistake to score a goal. You know, we know we like football punishes you if you don't score when you're on top. I think it's really important that if we score when we're on top, if we can. And a concern I have is if we don't score when we're on top and we get caught on the break, because there is only Crawley that have conceded more goals on the counter attack than we have in the league. You know, we haven't conceded that many, but a reasonable percentage of them have been on the counter attack. Four of our goals that we've conceded have been on the counter. Only Crawley, by conceding 5, is more than that. Probably when we're chasing games, that's happened a little bit, trying to get back into them. But still, it's a stat that it's the only really defensive deficiency we have is being caught on the counter at times. So that is a concern, and of course, if that happens, then there are questions asked, and things start to feel really, really bad. But I suppose that the positives here is that it really is a winnable game for us. They do have defensive deficiencies, have improved recently, but against teams that you'd expect them to improve against defensively, that don't offer a huge amount of attacking input. So I think we will have opportunities here. Massive question is whether we take them, but you know, if we can just get that little bit of luck, and we not kind of win a game from coming from behind, but take the lead in a game, score the first goal, I think we'll be all right, because I think we're set up to be able to deal with that situation. We haven't had the opportunity to deal with it very often recently, but I think how we play is really good at being a goal up, because we can then play on the counter against teams. It's just scoring that first goal, and it's easier said than done. But I just really hope that we can score a crap goal. To be honest, the sort of goal that Bolton scored on Tuesday. You know, just something that's fortunate. But I just think it'll be a huge pressure release valve if we can take a lead in the game. I think we'll be all right. And I seriously believe if that's the case, that we'll be looking back at this in a month's time, thinking, "Oh, what were we all worried about?" But the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes. So it's a really big game, Ben. It's a big old game. I'm really looking forward to going. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. I mean, do we think that what would be better, in your opinion? The goal of the month competition, where we have one goal and it's a penalty, and everyone laughs at it and goes, "Oh, isn't that crap?" Or the ball going in off someone's arse, winning goal of the month.
You know what? I'll take that, because it's what happened, because it's the most recent one, and it means we've scored a goal. So I'll take the latter. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all know that it's going to be a scrappy game on Saturday. I'm not expecting an absolute classic, but I kind of hope, and we've said this numerous times recently, where like if this is the one where we get the goal and then that opens up the floodgates, you know, it's just that little first crack, and then all of a sudden the water just starts to come through, and then I don't know. I almost want that to be at home. I know it's really, really selfish to say that, but like I'm unfortunate I can't go on Saturday. It's like if we can get that goal at home against Peterborough early doors, you know, as quick as Birmingham scored against us, that would be nice, wouldn't it? You know, if we can have that moment, and then all of a sudden the pressure just starts to come off against Peterborough. Oh, it'd be lovely. But yeah, we're not talking about
that. We'll touch on that later. But if we can get a win against Northampton, I would be reasonably confident that we'd be able to beat Peterborough. And then you get 2 wins on the bounce, and everything just feels so much better, doesn't it? We just need that first goal, and that's hardly a hot take, is it? We all know what we need. But I think support is required here. We need to support the lads, and you know, confidence is huge in football. And if we can give them just that extra 0.5% of confidence by giving a little bit of backing, and I think away crowds generally do that really, really well. And I think we've got a following.
100%.
Hopefully and we'll be all right in the end.
We will be fine. Look, it's going to be a tricky weekend again, and I think ultimately, you know, we should be okay. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, we may have a body or two in the building to bring in a fresh face and go, "Hey, it's me. I can do the thing." And then someone comes in and bags a hat trick on Saturday. But course, one of the things that we will have to contend with on Saturday is TJ Aoma, who is, by all accounts, playing extremely well at Northampton. It's something that I will be speaking to Danny about in a little bit. You can check out the preview when it is live on YouTube, which will be more than likely early doors, because I've spent the entire day in this room right now, and I feel like I need to stretch my legs a little bit at least. But look, I don't think there's much else coming from the club or in general to talk about at the moment. So with that, I think we will leave this episode, which has been number 350. It's a big old number. We're looking at, well, we'll probably hit 400 at some point this year, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't think there's too much else to talk about. So with that, we will depart and leave you with the words that we always say: up the imps.
Up the imps.